Welcome back to Movies Recapped. Today, I will show you an American science fiction action film of a man stuck in a time loop. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and have a good day.
A series of broken newscasts describe how an asteroid carrying an alien race called mimics crashed in Europe and destroyed the continent in a deadly war. After 5 years of post-war defeats, the NATO-led Joint Defense Forces finally won at Verdun, France using new mechanical jacket combat suits. British Special Forces soldier Sergeant Rita Ratsky has been hailed as the Angel of Verdun after hitting hundreds of mimics alone. She will be an immediate symbol and recruitment boon to the human forces as the United Human Forces prepare to deploy all their forces in Verdun to the multi-dimensional final attack in Europe. U.S. Army Major William Cage was one of the main figures in the news story telling the Ratsky story and promoting war effort. The morning before the attack on France, Cage awoke from a helicopter flight to London. He meets with General Brigham, commander of the Western Allies, who believes that General Cage wants to boost his public image or prepare for his post-war political career. Instead, he ordered General Cage to enter France with the first Allied forces and provide ground coverage for the media. Cage, a college ROTC cadet who is a major in advertising and inexperienced in combat, tries all the tricks he can think of to integrate with combat units and avoid deployment orders. Cage ends up trying to blackmail him using his media skills. The general agrees not to film Cage's invasion, but orders Cage's arrest. Cage tries to escape, but the guards knock him unconscious. Cage wakes up in the afternoon on a pile of duffel bags at Heathrow Airport, a huge military base and a jumping-off point for an attack on the continent. Before Sergeant Farrell takes charge, a sergeant kicks him and calls him maggot. Sergeant Farrell received orders from General Brigham, who described the Private Cage as a major and a fugitive. Cage was assigned to a team of oddball soldiers, the J Squad, who were caught playing poker and gambling by Farrell when Cage was introduced to them. Farrell forces the J Squad to eat the gambling cards and orders them to prepare Cage to deploy with them tomorrow. But Cage is immediately taken over by the squad for physical training. The next day, Cage had a nervous breakdown. He was given a battle suit, but J Squad members did not teach him how to use his weapon, including disabling safe mode, because they believed he would anyway die. As they were about to land on the French coast, the rear of their aircraft collided with enemy weapons and the squad fell ahead. Despite the sudden onslaught of the operation to recapture Europe, the mimics are ready and will kill humans. Sergeant Ratsky also entered the beach but was killed within minutes. All the other members of the J Squad were quickly killed. Still shell-shocked and ready to die, Cage climbs the mine with a big blue mimic alpha and jumps on it. The next blast kills the alpha mimic, and before the Cage dies, the blue blood of the alpha covers Cage wounds. Cage immediately wakes up on top of the duffel bag, in the same spot the day before with fear. The same sergeant calls him maggot and Farrell takes him back to the J Squad. Although he tried desperately to convince them that the whole attack would kill everyone, no one believed him. Trapped in a time loop, he is repeatedly deployed and dies in several ways, simply waking up repeatedly on a duffel bag. With each loop, he becomes a little more adept at killing mimics and defending members of the J Squad and Rita Ratsky. But there are plenty of mimics, and in the end all are killed. In one loop, he lived long enough to tell Ratsky that he was trapped in a time loop. Recognizing his condition, Ratsky told Cage, "Find me when you wake up," before they were both killed again. Cage wakes up at the duffel bag again, but cooperates with the sergeant. Farrell and the J Squad asked to give themselves time to find Ratsky. After several deadly attempts to slip into the base, Cage finally escapes during PT and finds training below Ratsky surrounded by training drones. All Special Forces soldiers are hostile to him and Ratsky greets her rudely. But when he reveals, she takes him to an arms manufacturing bay where Dr. Carter is working. There they go to the back room and explain about the time loop. Carter was formerly a researcher at General Brigham's headquarters, and he developed a theory that all mimics were neurological expressions of the Omega extraterrestrial being. He told Carter that the aliens were capable of reversing time, so each time they hit the alpha mimic, they would reverse the time and help them accurately predict the next action of the invading forces meets. Ratsky explained that when the large blue alpha mimic's blood spilled on her, she entered the loop just as Cage had experienced. She got caught up in the time loop in Verdun, which allowed her to kill hundreds of mimics alone, which became her last loop. She explains that she was injured and received a human blood transfusion, causing the foreign blood to lose its effect and break the cycle. Rita Ratsky told Cage to repeat the loop until he showed some information that would help his success. She always tells him to make sure he dies on the battlefield or in training, or she has to kill him to get started again so that he does not lose his ability to restart the loop. Carter designed a device that could detect Omega if stabbed in an alpha mimic, but no one believed his theory and was reduced to a mechanical repair unit. Cage tries to understand what he is saying, but Ratsky says he has to get out of yesterday's attack to find Omega. Through a large number of loops, she trains Cage, in some cases when he is seriously wounded, on his opposition to killing him, so that he can start the loop again. Cage and Ratsky improve their fighting skills and progress on the beach during the invasion, but despite their efforts, they both die and Cage is trapped in his loop. Cage is fascinated by Ratsky, but devastated to see himself repeatedly die in the loop. Cage finally experiences a vision of Omega hiding in a dam in Germany. Ratsky and Carter believe that these scenes were caused due to Cage being in contact with alpha mimic blood. He believes Omega can change time and awareness. Cage and Ratsky focus their efforts on escaping the invasion beach and moving to the hinterlands of Germany. After many failures and deaths, Cage and Ratsky eventually made it to the interior. Through repeated attempts, Cage develops a fascination with Ratsky, and he slowly gathers details about her. In one loop, Ratsky tells Cage about her boyfriend in Verdun who died 300 times before she could loop, and he died for good. After discovering a helicopter in a farmhouse, Ratsky realizes that Cage is trying to persuade him to stay in the farmhouse, where he will go alone and confront Omega. Cage admits that they have already been to the farmhouse several times, but each time Ratsky dies, he goes alone to prevent her from dying again. Shocked and wounded, she dies again. During a loop, Cage, who felt the fight was in vain, decided not to meet Ratsky. Eventually manages to reach the German dam alone, but finds nothing and is almost captured by mimics before he sinks himself. In the next loop, Cage, Ratsky and Carter put the pieces together and discovered the philosophy. Ratsky's victory in Verdun was a ploy by Omega mimics. Omega defeated them in Verdun to persuade them to invade Europe, where all the human armies were ambushed. Without other leads, the device that got Carter fired is their last chance. Ratsky and Cage focused on getting the switch device from the treasury of General Brigham's office in Whitehall. They infiltrated the Ministry of Defense and, after several loops, persuaded Brigham to give them the special equipment Carter made. Brigham repents and gives them transponder before sending troops behind them. As they run away from troops in a car, Cage stabbed Ratsky in the leg. Cage looks at the exact location of the Omega, deep beneath the Louvre Museum in Paris. As they were trying to escape from the Allied headquarters, their car was stopped by a soldier in a mechanical jacket, and before she could get to kill Cage and reset the day, the airbag knocks Ratsky down. Cage wakes up in a hospital. He sees that he is receiving a blood transfusion and realizes that he can no longer loop over time. Ratsky helps Cage escape, but with no chance of returning in time and only a few hours before the doomed attack, Cage decides to hire the misfit J-Squad to help him get to Paris. Casey's current intimate knowledge of the J-Squad and Ratsky's credibility persuaded the J-Squad to go with him. They steal a plane and go to Paris. Once near the location, the mimics attack their plane. They should not kill the alpha mimic that protects Omega, which will reset Omega time. So all team members must take one for the team that is to accept death, and try not to imitate any alpha they will find themselves face to face with. Half the men in the J-Squad were killed in the ensuing firefight. Cage, Ratsky, and 3 other members of the J-Squad decided to use the remaining engine power to slide the plane into the main spot. Once inside, they planned to use grenades to destroy Omega. The rest of the J-Squad sacrificed themselves and Cage and Ratsky made it inside museum. Upon his arrival, Ratsky says she will distract Alpha Mimic, while Cage can put the bomb underwater inside Omega below the Louvre. Ratsky says neither of them can make out of there, kisses him and says if she had more time to get to know Cage better. Ratsky goes to Alpha Mimic, sets out to divert attention, and Cage dives underwater to find Omega. After a brief chase, Alpha captures and kills Ratsky. Omega absorbs the Cage and sends the Alpha to kill Cage. Alpha then dives in and kills Cage, but before dying, Cage pulls out the grenade pin and drops the grenade belt into the Omega. Omega explodes and all mimics die with it. After Cage dies, the Omega blood covers away his face and open eyes of Alpha Mimic blood like on the first day of the loop. Cage woke up suddenly, confused, and flew by helicopter to London the morning before the invasion to meet General Brigham. He gets down and listens to the ceremony bells. He was watching a news conference when the general announced that a huge mysterious explosion had taken place in Paris. The general said that the mimics were dead and that the next day human forces would begin a massive destruction across Europe. He sees himself engaged in PT at the J Squad base. Everyone respects him as an officer. He finds Ratsky and she greets him with the same rudeness she encounters in each loop. Cage smiles broadly.
Don't forget to subscribe, it helps the channel, and hit that notification bell to be notified for daily vids. Thank you for watching.